Happy Monday. And today, the news is nuts. For example, what would you get if you combined the values of GM, General Motors, and GE, General Electric, and McDonald's, and Walmart? What do you get if you combine the values of those four gigantic companies? You would get one Apple. This is crazy. The second largest company in the country is Exxon in terms of its mobile. Apple, as of today, based on its stock price today, Apple right now is valued at more than double the value of ExxonMobil. Apple is GM plus GE plus McDonald's plus Walmart together. Just as a point of reference, if Apple were a country, Apple would have somewhere between the 19th and 20th highest GDPs in the world. So Apple would be a little smaller than Saudi Arabia, a little bigger than Switzerland. If you want to get to the valuation of Apple as a company right now, add together the entire size of the economy of Iceland, Brunei, Jamaica, Nicaragua, Jordan, Lebanon, Guatemala, New Zealand, Kuwait, and Ireland. Add them all up, and you are not quite at the valuation of one American company. If Apple decided to give the world an allowance, every single human being on the planet Earth, each individual member of the human species, would get $100 from Apple. That is how big Apple Computer is with what its stock price hit today. That's the kind of news day that today is. It's just nuts. It's just weird. It's like, it seems like you're making it up. Today was also this kind of news day that brought us this from Idaho. I have to say, if you are a toddler watching this program, hi, please ask your mom or your dad or whatever responsible adult is nearby if it's okay for you to see this next part, okay? Like I said, it's from Idaho, so brace yourself. This is Idaho State Representative Vito Barbieri. Mr. Barbieri represents an area called Dalton Gardens in western Idaho. And today, in a hearing about a bill that would impose new abortion regulations in his state, Representative Barbieri voted to impose those new restrictions, voted that doctors should be prohibited from doing something they already do in the state of Idaho. Because what do those doctors know? Let the legislators decide instead. Because the legislators know better than the doctors, particularly when it comes to lady parts and the delicate matter of where exactly those parts are. Just watch this. This is from the Idaho legislature. They start talking about colonoscopies, and things just go downhill from there. I swear we did not edit this. This really happened today, because this is what today is like in the news.
You mentioned the risk of colonoscopy. Can that be done by drugs?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Barbieri, it can not be done by drugs. It can, however, be done remotely, where you swallow a pill, and this pill has a little camera, and it makes its way through your intestines, and those images are uploaded to a doctor who's often thousands of miles away, who then interprets that.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Barbieri.
Can this same procedure then be done in a pregnancy? Swallowing a camera and helping the doctor determine what the situation is with the...
Mr. Chairman and Representative, it cannot be done in pregnancy simply because when you swallow a pill, it would not end up in the vagina.
Fascinating. That certainly makes sense, doctor.
Sometimes there's nothing to add. Sometimes the most straightforward headlines are all that you really need to tell a story like this. I should tell you that this appeared on Representative Barbieri's Wikipedia page shortly after this incident today. Quote, on February 23rd, 2015, Representative Barbieri learned that if a woman swallows a pill, it will not end up in her vagina. And then there's the relevant footnotes, which are accurate. According to the Associated Press today, the Idaho bill to add these new restrictions on doctors, which Representative Barbieri supported, his bill passed today. Also, Representative Barbieri himself is on the board of a crisis pregnancy center. Though, to be fair, when he went to the last anti-abortion crisis pregnancy center board meeting, they were all talking about how the baby comes out of the lady's tum-tum. So you can see where he could get confused. But that guy's bill passed today, even with the shin bone connected to the knee bone problem. That was just basically the character of the news today. And we're not even getting to the freakishly giant rats the size of cats that are now turning up in England and that are apparently totally immune to all standard rat poisons. We're not even getting to that today, which was also in today's news, because for all the things that are hard to believe in today's news, and today was a doozy, for my money, the single hardest thing to believe in today's news is something that happened in Washington, D.C. It happened just after 6 p.m. Eastern tonight, so just a little while ago. And it happened when Republicans in Congress failed to move a bill that was supposed to present the shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security. This is going to happen. It is looking more likely than not that the first major consequence of the Republicans taking over Congress is that the Homeland Security Department is going to shut down this week because House and Senate Republicans cannot agree on a way to keep it open. By now, we have lived through the sequester, which were those totally arbitrary cuts, including cuts to the military, cuts that were specifically designed to be so bad and so stupid that nobody would want them to take effect. But they took effect anyway. We lived through the government shutdown, which happened when Republicans held the federal government hostage in order to try to get President Obama to decide he was against Obamacare after all. We have seen the Republican Party do all of that from their position as controlling half of Congress. So maybe now that they control the whole thing, this might not seem as surprising as, say, British super rats the size of cats or a grown male adult who thinks babies come from ladies' tummies, or the stock market saying today that one company has an economy the size of, Saudi Arabia. But in context, this is almost impossible to wrap your head around. The part of the government that grew to become the Department of Homeland Security was created by President George W. Bush 9 days after the September 11th terrorist attacks. In a very serious and frankly moving address to a joint session of Congress, President Bush announced this centerpiece policy of his post-9/11 government, what would ultimately become the biggest transformation of the federal government since the post-World War II era.
My fellow citizens, for the last 9 days, the entire world has seen for itself the state of our union, and it is strong. Today, dozens of federal departments and agencies, as well as state and local governments, have responsibilities affecting Homeland Security. These efforts must be coordinated at the highest level. So tonight I announced the creation of a cabinet-level position reporting directly to me, the Office of Homeland Security.
Pennsylvania Governor Tom Ridge was tasked with running the Office of Homeland Security. When it came time to make that Office of Homeland Security actually a full cabinet-level Department of Homeland Security, Republicans in the House and the Senate were basically unanimous in their support for doing that. There were Democratic defections, especially in the House. Democrats weren't all comfortable with creating this massive new agency with the frankly creepy name. But, Republicans were fully, even chest-thumpingly on board. Homeland Security was their thing, right? In the Senate, Republicans voted unanimously to create the Homeland Security Department. And of course they would, right? They're the law and order party, right? That has historically been part of the heart and soul of the Republican Party, or at least how they want to be seen. Right now, that's getting a lot more difficult to explain. The Homeland Security Department today encompasses 16 federal agencies, including Customs and Border Protection and FEMA and the Secret Service and TSA and Coast Guard and the Domestic Nuclear Detection Office and Immigration and Customs Enforcement and lots more. This afternoon, Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson gave a press conference where he stood with the heads of some of those agencies and some employees from the Homeland Security Department, and he basically warned Congress that they are putting the country at risk by shutting down his department.
That continuing resolution expires in just 4.5 days. The clock is ticking, and as I stand here, there is nothing from Congress to fund us beyond that point. A shutdown of Homeland Security would have serious consequences and amount to a serious disruption in our ability to protect the homeland.
On a day of weird news, on a day when a lot of strange things and hard to believe things happen in the news, the Republican Party failing to fund the part of the government created by a Republican president with mostly Republican support that's supposed to keep the homeland secure, that has that for its name, For my money, that is the weirdest thing that I have seen in a very long time, in politics or without. But as of this vote tonight at 6 o'clock, it looks like this is happening. Joining us now is John Stanton, Washington Bureau Chief for BuzzFeed News. John, it's great to see you. Thanks for your time tonight.
It's good to be here.
John, are you surprised that Republicans are allowing this to happen? I guess the 6 o'clock vote tonight wasn't necessarily thought of as something that was going to be the solution. But I have to admit, it's weird to me that it's gotten this late.
I have to admit that's kind of adorable, actually, given how much they've done this at this point. No, it's not surprising to me at all. I think that one of the things you have to understand is that Republicans, their desire to get into a fight with Obama over these issues of what they say is executive overreach is really sort of the biggest overarching issue for them right now, particularly in the House of Representatives, where the members don't face the kind of electoral pressures that, say, Republicans in the Senate do, or more importantly, in a lot of ways, 2016 Republicans will. They see this as a winning issue for them. Their base guys are out there telling them this is a good idea, so they're willing to go and pick this fight. And the fact that they've done this now several times, got to the brink on this one, and they've had a shutdown, and there's been all these sort of brinksmanship, this does not, unfortunately, really surprise me at all.
Well, are they going? It's the thing. I guess I feel your judgment of my naivete. I can feel it as your friend. I can see it. I recognize it in those eyebrows. But but the thing that is, I will make a case for my surprise, which is that this isn't shut down the evil federal government, shut down the Leviathan. Federal government doesn't do anything good anyway. This is like shut down the one part of the government that we will never say a bad word about. Shut down the one part of the government that has a creepy jingoistic name. Shut down a one part of a government that was created by George W. Bush with unanimous, all but unanimous Republican support that they've never had a word against. I mean, this is like the political equivalent of them banning apple pie. I have to feel like, isn't there some Homeland Security specific pushback even within their own party?
There is. I mean, I think, Senate Republicans certainly are looking at the House guys and saying, look, on the one hand, we're saying that we need to get more money, we need to get more Border Patrol people down there to handle immigration issues, and we are the party of sort of law and order, and we're tough on security, and, we've been beating up on the president over his handling of foreign policy, and, you guys are doing this, and this is going to make us look bad. But I think that there is this sort of general belief and feeling that this is the moment in which they have to try to fight the president on this issue that has become sort of the issue du jour for a lot of the base, which is this notion of executive overreach on immigration and on health care and other things. And I think, once you start to bring in that anger towards Obama, it overrides everything else, frankly, that is going on within the party and on the Hill. And there is not really much room for compromise on the House side.
Do you think that they're going to, looking ahead at the next few days, right? The funding expires on Friday. That will be the shutdown of the department. Do you think they will do something in terms of like a short-term extension or something else? Do they want this to be over? Or is this one of those things where they want it to go on as long as possible because they like these politics?
Depends on who you talk to, I guess. I think leadership, certainly the last thing they want is a short-term kind of a situation where they're constantly having to refight this. They want to go and talk about their economic policies, their education policies, their energy stuff. They don't want to talk about, President Obama's immigration stuff. And they don't want to have this constant, brinksmanship that has really become their hallmark over the last 6 years in the House. And on the Senate side in particular, that is the last thing they want to do. But they're not going to get a bill passed before Friday that funds the, DHS through September or the end of the fiscal year or the end of the calendar year. So really, it's either going to end up being a shutdown over maybe a couple of weeks, probably would be the best case scenario for them, or this sort of rolling short-term CRs, which I think is really what they want to avoid at this point.
Wow. It's amazing. I know we saw this coming. I cannot believe that this is the week and it is actually happening. And I bask in your judgment of my naivete. John Stanton, Washington Bureau Chief for BuzzFeed News. John, thanks a lot, man.
Anytime.